Good morning. I'm happy to be with you today. And as you know, Climate Reality Project is doing thousands of presentations around the world over the next 24 hours to raise awareness about the climate crisis. I'm pleased to be a part of it. So I want to talk to you about this crisis and what we can do. But let me start with my middle name. I was named after my great uncle, George Bird Grinnell. He was the founder of the Audubon Society and father of Glacier National Park. Grinnell inspired me, along with many others, through the Boone and Crockett Club he founded with Teddy Roosevelt. So it's not surprising that the environment has always been an important part of my life. Grinnell had a glacier in Glacier National Park named after him, and it was beautiful. Here it is in 1920 and in 2013. Notice a difference? And here it is more recently. Clearly, there is something missing. At one point, the glacier used to flow most of the way to the lowest lake. So why am I so focused on addressing climate change? I want my kids and their kids to have a world that is not threatened with extinction. So let's get into it. Please hold your questions till the end and put yourself on mute. Many of you have already heard most of what I'm going to say, so please consider it as a reminder. Let's get started. This is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last Apollo mission, and it changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. It was called the Blue Marble. And it reminds us that we're all connected and that our actions have an impact on our planet. Now, let me be very clear. Our blue marble, Mother Earth, is compensating perfectly to sustain herself. Every change in our climate and environment happens within her perfect equilibrium. She has been in balance for millions of years, and she will continue to be in balance for millions to come. So what's the problem? Perhaps we are the ones that are out of balance with our Mother Earth. Today, we're going to look at three questions. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? First of all, must we change? The scientific community has been telling us for a long time that, yes, we must change. And Mother Earth, Mother Nature, has been giving us the same message. The sky's not a vast and limitless expanse the way it appears to us when we stand on the ground and look up. In reality, there's just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. And we're putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into that atmosphere every single day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide, CO2, is building up and it's trapping heat. You know about climate change and global warming. It's been understood since the 1800s. Energy from the sun comes to the earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the earth and warms it. Some of that energy is re-radiated from the earth in the form of heat. Some of that outgoing heat is trapped by the atmosphere, which is a good thing. It has kept our planet at a stable temperature. Now, however, we've been thickening the atmosphere by filling it with heat-trapping pollution. The more heat that is trapped, the more our planet is heated up. And this is happening at an unprecedented rate. There are many sources of human-caused global warming. Agricultural practices, forest burning, transportation, industrial, whatever. There's lots of them. But they can break them down into basically 6 different areas: electricity, food, agriculture and land use, industry, transportation, buildings, and others. But the main source and cause of rising global temperatures that we're seeing today is the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy. Fossil fuel use and emissions have gone up dramatically since World War II. In the last few years, there was a leveling off as the world adopted more and more clean energy solutions. But even with the pandemic, the trend is upward. The result is more of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere and global temperatures rising dramatically. As a matter of fact, 19 of the last 20 hottest years have been measured since 2001. The 5 hottest of all have been the last 5 years. And 2020 is headed towards being in the top 5. This has led to incredible temperatures, 123 degrees in India last year, 130 degrees in Death Valley just this past August. Heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world and many parts of our country. It affects not only people, but animals, crops, and our weather. And all that extra heat is being absorbed by the Earth, 93% of it going into the oceans. This heat is changing the oceans, impacting habitats and fish, while creating storms that are stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat has occurred in the last 20 years. Here's what's been happening in recent years with ocean heat. Acidification of the ocean, some people call it the evil twin with global warming, because all of the CO2 we're putting into the air, much of it settles in the ocean and makes the oceans more acidic. They have become 30% more acidic since we started burning coal and other fossil fuels in large quantities. The Great Barrier Reef has had a massive die-off of coral. When they get white, that means they're dead. They can come back from that, but if it happens 2 or 3 times, then they die off and turn brown. 30% of that has come in the last 4 years. And marine vertebrates have declined by just about half in the past 50 years. There is a recent finding showing that nutritional quality of seafood has also gone down as the water temperatures have gone up. And now we're finding dead zones around the world, locations where there's no oxygen in the water. Often that will happen in synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, which is used by farmers all over the world. It feeds algae growth. When the algae dies, all the oxygen is depleted. But it's the storms, cyclones, hurricanes that are the most obvious to us. This year, India and Bangladesh were hit by a super cyclone that was supercharged by significantly warmer weather in the Bay of Bengal. The super cyclone filled the entire Bay of Bengal, the largest bay in the world, at 840,000 square miles. And our California weather, coming off the ocean, is changing too. 12,000 dry lightning strikes starting over 500 fires. This kind of storm is more familiar to hot and humid climates nearer the equator, and it comes with rain there. And this storm is delivered by the Pineapple Express, an atmospheric river coming across the Pacific. Let me locate it for you. There's Hawaii at the lower left, and this is Silicon Valley at the upper right. That's the atmospheric river, 2,300 kilometers. The extra heat that is trapped in our atmosphere is also disrupting the water cycle. The amount of water vapor that evaporates over the oceans increases as the oceans warm. That water vapor is carried over the land and often falls in much bigger precipitation events. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls in these larger storms, we see floods and mudslides. Extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s all around the world. Here's what's called a rain bomb in Phoenix in 2016. It looks kind of familiar. It's a downward atom bomb. Extreme precipitation events lead to record flooding, which has been occurring all over the world. Here's Houston in 2017. And here's New York just last June. Now remember, this is flooding, not tidal. This is flooding from the rain. Remember the intensity of Hurricane Sandy? That kind of storm used to come every 500 years. That has changed and will continue to change to the point where it will be once every 5 years. So some people have wondered how global warming can cause more precipitation and flooding, and at the same time, more drought. The extra heat trapped by rising level of greenhouse gases actually leads to both. And as the climate changes, precipitation patterns also change, leaving some places with less rainfall. And in South Texas, they're experiencing extreme drought that impacts residents and reduces the aquifer. This is just a few hundred miles from Houston. Higher temperatures, not surprising, also have a direct effect on the frequency and severity of wildfires. The number of large fires corresponds closely to years with higher average spring and summer temperatures. Today, the fire season in the western US is more than 100 days longer than it was in the 1970s. Here in the Bay Area where I live, we're all engaged in the result of lightning strikes and other fires now raging across California. This is climate change. And the number of climate-related extreme weather events has been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with over 160 billion in losses in 2018 and 140 in 2019. And here's a glacier in southwest Greenland in the summer of 1935. It shows glacial ice covering the fjord walls. The second photo is the same glacier, almost completely melted in 2013, not even a century later due to rising temperature. NASA has precisely measured the decline in mass of ice in both Greenland and Antarctica. All this extra melting is raising sea levels worldwide. High tides are more often flooding the streets of larger coastal cities around the world. Here's Newport Beach. Here. And here's the result of high tides in Miami Beach, Florida, on a sunny day with no rain. This situation will only get worse as sea levels continue to rise. And Miami is the #1 city at risk in terms of assets at risk, along with Guangzhou, China, Newark, and others. But look at the cities at risk by population. Many huge cities in developing countries are very much in danger. If parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where will the people who live there go? The US Department of Defense has long warned about refugee crises connected with climate crisis, as well as pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. 25 people are displaced every minute. In 2025, there will be 200 million worldwide, some by war, some by scarcity, and many from climate crisis. One of Rotary's great projects, the NGO Shelter Box, in 2019 provided housing and food security for 145,000 people, and the need is increasing. It is expected that 13 million will be displaced in the United States in this century. And here are the areas most likely to be impacted. Of particular note is the Gulf Coast, where 2 hurricanes, Laura and Delta, have created storm surges in the same area within a month. And speaking of refugees, during this pandemic, the task of rescuing and sheltering people is further complicated for them and for their rescuers. And heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans. Exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many stable crops, such as rice, wheat, and soy. Infectious diseases, heat stress, air pollution, and waterborne diseases are all influenced by the changing climate and not in our favor. These warmer temperatures have an impact on the spread of tropical diseases. Modern transportation and air travel play a part, but the potential range for many diseases expands as regions farther and farther towards the poles get warmer. This means there are more and more places where diseases like Zika can take root. The main mosquito that spreads Zika and dengue and yellow fever, is now covering a wider range in warmer, wetter world. In warmer temperatures, the virus incubates faster and mosquitoes breed more and are able to transmit the disease longer. The health impact of the climate crisis are often overlooked, but will affect millions of people. At the same time, climate change, along with other factors like ecosystem loss, are contributing to the worst extinction event since the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The planet's been on a roller coaster ride for the last 10,000 years, based on average temperatures. It is worth considering that with the very recent heating of our planet, one future extinction event might well be the human race, likely sooner rather than later. Threat to our global economy help us to answer the question, must we? So, do we have to change? Yes, we do. But what about the second question? Can we change? The answer to this question is very, very exciting and positive. We've got the solutions available to us now. Look, for example, at renewable energy. Wind energy was predicted to provide 30 gigawatts of electricity worldwide by 2010. As of 2019, we had exceeded that prediction 22 times over. The growth of wind energy being built around the world is an exponential curve. Did you know that wind energy could supply 40 times more electricity than the entire world currently uses? And solar energy is an even more dramatic story. In 2002, the best projection was 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity installed per year by 2010. In 2010, we exceeded that goal by 17 times. In 2019, we exceeded the goal by 121 times. Even more dramatic than wind, here's the exponential curve of solar energy installed around the world. And just like other technologies, computer chips and cell phones, solar costs are falling dramatically. In some regions, solar energy is less than half the cost of electricity from burning coal. Across the world, solar is leapfrogging old technology. In many places where there's no electric grid, we are seeing consumers and businesses installing solar panels. Chile is a great example of a true solar success story thanks to its policy decisions. The solar markets took off slowly, but look what's happening now. At the end of 2018, Chile had 2.3 gigawatts of installed solar and has additional 16.67 gigawatts of solar projects approved or under construction. Many regions in the world can duplicate this type of growth. Every hour the Earth gets as much energy from the sun as we need to run the entire global economy for a year. If we can increase the fraction of this energy that we harvest and use, we can make a lot of progress towards solving the climate crisis and helping local economies at the same time. On another front, battery storage is an essential part of the green energy revolution. Batteries allow us to store excess solar and wind energy and use it during the times when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. Batteries are also critical to the electric vehicle market. In 2016, the global cumulative storage capacity approached 3 gigawatts, twice the capacity in 2011. As storage technologies get more efficient and cheaper, the market is growing quickly and is expected to get to 900 gigawatts by 2040. Within the next 8 years, highly efficient LED lights are predicted to virtually take over the market. Energy efficient technologies like LEDs save people money and help to reduce emissions by cutting down on the amount of electricity we use. And all these automobile manufacturers are now offering or preparing to offer electric vehicles. This is another part of the sustainable revolution. So, can we change? Yes, we can. What about the last question? Will we change? Here too, there's a lot of exciting news. In December 2015, at the Paris climate negotiations, every nation in the world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as early in the second half of the century as possible. And the US decision to withdraw cannot be initiated until November 4th with notice. And climate action isn't just about what countries can do. We're seeing states, provinces, cities, universities, corporations, and nonprofits commit to reducing emissions. The US is very much still in the game. Cities, states, colleges, and business are committed. And here in the US, no matter what the federal government or White House policy is, 24 of our states, representing well over half the American people, are already going farther than required by the Paris Agreement. And multiple US cities have committed to 100% renewable energy, and a small group have already gotten there. Columbia, Maryland, Burlington, Vermont, Greensburg, Kansas, Georgetown, Texas, Aspen, Colorado, and Kodak, Alaska. People are marching and demonstrating. We're seeing demands at the ballot box. More than 70% of the US voters are fully in support of going 100% renewable electricity. Some of the world's biggest companies have pledged to reach net zero carbon emissions by mid-century. Here in the US, Walmart's a good example of a company taking action to address climate change. They are one of the largest installers and purchasers of solar power in the country. They've had a massive emission reductions and are committed to reducing carbon emissions in their supply chain by 1 billion tons by 2030, with oversight by environmental advocacy groups. Now, if we could only see an EV truck, and we are seeing some in the development stage, the race is on to see who gets to the market first. Overall, progress is being made, but both here in the US, it's slow. COP26, the Paris Accord renewal this year, was supposed to happen in November, but because of the coronavirus, it's been put off until next year. But delays have risk, and the principal among them is slower progress. Countries were expected to propose new global reduction commitments, and the extra finance for less wealthy countries was due to be proposed. These are critical to success across the board going forward. And we still have an issue with government support for renewable resources. It is slowly shifting away from fossil fuels, but not fast enough. Amazingly, oil and gas exploration in the US still gets more subsidies than renewables, a leftover from World War II. Here is the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's, one of the most commonly used stock indices. And it's been going up for the last decade. And here is the energy sector index, not a very good investment. And if you look at the stock market returns on clean energy sector, they've gone up 60% in the last 3.5 years. What about fossil fuel companies? They've gone down 12% in the last 3.5 years. And here's the overall value of ExxonMobil. Put that against Tesla. A lot of these companies are now coming to understand they're facing a real crisis. So, what can we do? Currently, without the Peace Accord and the Paris Accord, we're headed for 4.7 degrees Celsius by 2100, excuse me. And here are the sources of pollution on the left from the breakout that we started in the beginning of this talk, and the ways we can address them on the right. There are some natural sinks, nature's way of sequestering carbon. Coastal and oceans, 17%, land, 24%. Did you know currently a single crop farming sends more carbon into the atmosphere while multi-crop and cover crops do the opposite? Consider working with the data from Project Drawdown, a coalition of scientists, researchers, and advisors from all over the world with a goal of providing 100 solutions to reverse global warming. Here's a drawdown overview of their research into solutions. Each solution shows a target reduction of 2.0 degrees in the inner circle and 1.5 degrees Celsius in the outer circle. This is by 2050. Drawdown has identified actions that can taken in each arena. As an individual or an organization, you can take action and structure it around your interests and expertise. So let's look at an example of this work and practical suggestions resulting from it. Electricity generation and use represents 25% of the pollution going into our atmosphere. Again, note the target, 2.0 Celsius and 1.5 Celsius, the inner and outer circles, as our targets for 2050. So let's break out two areas that opportunities describe, and let's look at what they might happen. If we shift production, onshore wind turbines replacing fossil fuel plants and generating electricity at a utility scale. Utility scale solar photovoltaic cells you can be used to utility scale with hundreds of thousands of panels tapping the sun's clean, free energy. Concentrated solar energy, concentrated solar power using sunlight as a heat source through steam turbines. Distributed solar, rooftop solar panels are a distributed solar photovoltaic system. Whether grid connected or part of a standalone system, they offer hyperlocal clean electric generation. If we enhance efficiency, LED light emitting diodes are the most energy efficient bulbs available, transferring most of their energy into light rather than heat. And here are some potential ideas that address electric solutions at local and home level. Encourage your neighbors, associates, and friends. Shift to clean energy available in most counties. Unhook your gas line. Solar panels on your roof. Buy or lease. Program your thermostats to save energy. Support legislation that moves renewables away from fossil fuels. Buy the Drawdown book and download Drawdown Review. Both will prove an inexhaustible source of information about the crisis and solutions, and consider specific ways that you can take action. Use your online resources. The Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group and Rotary Climate Action Team websites provide lots of detail, resources that you can use, suggestions, as well as success stories. Take the time to do a short or long form footprint assessment. The best short form is the gold standard, and you can look it up on Google. We Renew and World Wildlife Fund are good detailed assessment. We Renew provides that on a zip code basis. So you can simply go to We Renew, put in your zip code, and you'll be able to take a long form footprint assessment. It'll give you anywhere from 50 to 75 different things that you can do. Businesses and organizations can seek green certification based on UN Sustainable Development Goals or through myriad of green certification programs in every country and US state. There are many ones. A simple look for certification will get you something that is local and effective. Take advantage of our speakers to inform you and your group on climate change issues and solutions. This is a partial list of some of the presentations we do. And Ask me about more presentations. We can cover lots of territory. And join us the third Thursday of every month for our Global Speakers Forum. This month, we have Dr. Elizabeth Bagley of the Project Drawdown. Join us if you can. Put your email in the chat and I'll send you an invitation, or contact me directly. Use your voice, use your vote, use your choices, and speak truth to power while the world depends on it. You know why? Because your world depends on it. We need your help and support. Thank you. Okay, questions?